group of people say they do not want foreigners here. They say these foreigners are taking their jobs and their economic opportunities.
That is not a job, that foreigners taking our job. No!
It is criminal that majority of Uber drivers, waiters, security guards, truck drivers and meter taxi drivers are not South African. A person can't come all the way from Asia to drive a meter taxi, whereas we've got so many people in Nyanga, Eguguletu, with driver's licenses but are without jobs.
Do we have a migration problem or do we have a labor law problem?
So the balance needs to come with the truth of the matter, which is that essentially I think we are fulfilled.
Sazi ngoba singama citizens not residents, so fanele yena ayenzokwakhe no asivumi into le angivumi asenzokwakhe afune hire ama foreigners ayekela ama civils. No, it's not right because we are the ones esimbekela phaya.
I think the thing is, when this conversation comes up, already there's a particular demographic that you're thinking of, right? But I feel like then it becomes a different conversation because we are not asking about the Dutch people in Anglo Gold or the British people in Anglo Gold. We're not asking about the French people in whatever, right? When we talk about foreign nationals, we are talking about our African brothers and sisters, the Zimbabweans, the Congolese, the Kenyans, right? And then we need to then understand what that says about us as South Africans. Because it's okay for you to be employed by an Italian, but it's not okay for you to even live with the idea that there's a Kenyan that's a CEO somewhere, right, in South Africa. So the balance needs to come with the truth of the matter, which is that essentially I think we're Afrophobic. Because everything that is African, we then start to be hostile about it. But then when you hear that, there's those ones, the Americans, the Mangans inside, we're okay with it and we're comfortable with it because these are people that we assume contribute to the economy positively, right? But we don't know that they also have negative contributions to our economy as well. Because, for instance, we are minerally wealthy as South Africa, right? But a lot of our minerals we don't bear the fruit of because we export them. Whether to be refined and then sold back to us, or we are giving them to whatever other countries. But we don't have an internal economic system, not only because, like Mkabai said, the dependency theory, but also because we are scared to, I'm gonna say scared for lack of a better word, right? To collaborate with our other African countries. We would rather trust an America over an Egypt, for example. We would rather trust England over Nigeria, for example, right? And okay, sure, currency-wise, they're not on the same level. But then we need to establish, when we talk about foreign nations, are we talking about everyone? And everyone, whether white, black, green, or gold, everyone, right? And we mustn't shy away from the fact that if we are going to be looking for a balance, the balance includes the Congolese, the Kenyans, the Nigerians, right? It doesn't only include the white people. So the balance would be that. And a lot of people are going to disagree with this because, like I said, a lot of these companies are from outside feeding into South Africa. like I used the example of Anglo Gold, right? If right now I was to say, guys, let's do Anglo Gold, people will be like, what? It's the biggest investment, right? But they don't understand that in doing that, we're cutting that dependence time. And we're saying South Africa must start a competitor for Anglo Gold. And then these white people from wherever that form the body for Anglo Gold, but are international, can then come the side to either be a supervisor, specialist, or whatever. They can do whatever, but they must work for the South African currency instead of the South African currency working for every other currency out there, right? So I think the balance for me would be that it would be that in as much as internationals we can coexist, it's fine, but their contribution should be for the South African rand, not for any other motive. So everyone that wants to work within South Africa should work for a South African enterprise, because we are confident that that money is not going anywhere else but in South Africa.
Yeah, just also comment on that. I think the main goal is for our economy to grow, right? And we'll obviously work with whatever that breaks in our favor to ensure that our economy grows. When I started the conversation, or when I introduced myself, I said I'm a Pan-Africanist driven by the ideology. So we believe in African states rather, working together to ensure that they develop, right? And the reality of things is that our currency is not the same. And it is our aim as South Africa to ensure that we assist other African states to develop as well. But at the same time, we must also look at the domestic issues that we have in South Africa and ensure that we serve our people first, right? We cannot be able to go out there and say, you know what, for you, power to that one, when we're leaving our own people at the back, not benefiting from our services as the state. So the aim is to have economic growth, but it must start at home before we go to invest in other countries outside, right? So you spoke about foreign nationals, to say that who exactly are we speaking about? It's literally everyone, right? If I have a problem with a person coming from Kenya to work in South Africa, but it's not going to be beneficial for the South African rand, and someone from France is doing the same thing, both of them, they have an issue. It doesn't matter whether this one is coming from an African continent or from the global north and so forth. But the goal is for our economy to grow, and for our economy to grow, it must first benefit our people before it benefit other people within the region of Africa or within the continent, right? And so one must ensure that we invest in our people first, right? And recognize our own skilled people. If they're not skilled, then we skill them. We create workshops to ensure that they are skilled labor. They can be able to work for our own economy, right? And then from there, we must also be able to recognize skilled workers who are coming from the global north or who are coming from the continent itself, right? If we do not have the necessary, or if we have the resources but do not have the necessary skilled labor to be able to ensure that we transform our resources to final products, why not go to China or rather employ someone from there? If there's someone who's coming from Malawi, then also employ that person to ensure that we push for economic growth within our rather state or within our country, right? So like I said, the goal is to have economic growth, but we must firstly serve our people before it goes outside. And like I said, I'm a Pan-Africanist. We must work together as African states to develop our economy, right? As South Africa, one of the leading countries when it comes to our GDP and so forth. But at the same time, we must service our people before we service other people outside. And also, when we speak about foreign nationals, it's not hate against African people, right? It's not even hate, or rather, it's not against African people alone, but foreign nationals, the nation, the entire globe, right? It's not entirely against Kenyan people, Nigerian, and so forth. There's no South African citizen who has sat in the hospital and said, I don't want to be treated by this doctor because he's Nigerian, right? But the government of South Africa said that, okay, we are in short of doctors, and there's a doctor from Nigeria can be able to come and assist our people in terms of their health. Then invite that doctor, whether they're Nigerian or whether they're from China. If we say we have a product, or rather want to transform our raw materials into final products, and we don't have the people who have the skill in our country, then invite other people from outside, not only to transform raw material into final products, but to also teach our people the skill. Because the goal is not to always invite them, but we also want to capacitate our own people to be at the point where they can be able to transform our raw materials into final products. So I think I'll keep it there, right? We believe that we should be able to ensure that we empower our own people within our country. Our services must service our people first before it goes outside. And the goal is to have economic growth. If we can be able to invite other people who are skilled from other countries, whether it be African continent or the global north, we'll definitely do that. But the end goal is not to always do that. It's to capacitate our own people to be at the point where they can be able to transform raw material into final products on their own without any assistance from outside people.
Can I just say that? It's fine. I think right now we are in a space of privilege because we are learned, right?
Yes.
And with that, it means that there's things that we know or we see, but it's not the reality of things. Because in as much as we say yes to you, foreign nationals, and to me as well, foreign nationals is to everyone, right? But every time when you open, yo guys, are really digitalized. I was about to say the newspaper, but when you go onto News 24, when you open whatever, whether Twitter, whatever, the complaint is not, but guys, our currency, a lot of it is going more to USA and Britain. No, the main conversation is that, hey, Nigeria, Kenya, Congo, Zimbabwe, right? And if you, as the Pan-Africanist that you proclaim yourself to be, do not identify that, then there's a problem. Because then, in as much as you stand for the unity of Africa, right, you need to identify that things are not the same. We spoke about equality earlier on. There's an inequality. And I don't know whether to say it's a racial inequality or it's just a thing of Africa versus, the North and the South, right? That conversation, the West and the rest, basically, right? There is that stereotype, and it's there for everyone. Everyone will complain about if a doctor walks in and he's speaking in an exotic, he's white, he's speaking in an exotic accent. For me, it means, he knows what he's doing. He's from France. He knows what he's doing. But if a doctor comes in and he's black and he speaks in an exotic accent, whether be it French or what, you don't even think this man might be from France, because Congolese people also speak French. You already think, hey, he's from Congo. Is he supposed to be here, right? And we need to identify that as a stereotype already. You need to acknowledge that it exists, because the moment that we acknowledge problems, we are then able to figure out how to fix these problems. But if we hide or shy away from the issues that exist, then there's nothing that will be done, because we won't see it as a problem. Yeah, that's what I wanted to correct.
Yeah, just to give my 2 cents. Luckily, the media student as well, so I understand the role of the media in portraying the different stereotypes that we have in society, right? The media plays a huge role in portraying the different stereotypes that we have in society. However, like I said, there is absolutely no one who is, even if right now we go outside, we meet Nigerians, we meet Congolese, we meet different people from that.
But that's a false.
Right?
You can't say there's absolutely no one.
All right, so
because you don't know. Remember now you're speaking from your own experiences or what you think you know. But there's a bigger world out there. So there's people that genuinely feel as though I don't want this person, and it's something that exists. Also, by the way, for white people, there's also that thing where maybe a Chinese will walk in. Like, these things exist. So you need to acknowledge it. If, for instance, you don't even need to be an international. If you get someone from Iran, he just came in from an accident, a very tough one, I'm about to cut off his leg. He will tell me, you are black, you don't know what you're doing, leave me alone. I'd rather my leg be cut off than to keep it and to for you to save it. Because why? There's that stereotype, there's that gap between white supremacists and black people, right? Which is the same thing that exists. There's that gap. And that's why I said there is Afrophobia and we can't say it doesn't exist. There is xenophobia, we can't say it doesn't exist.
Sure.
Because it exists. And there's people that have strong feelings towards it. That people would rather say, I'd rather die. I'd rather this thing kill me than for you to tend to me.
So, as I was continuing before we came in, so I'm not saying I'm not acknowledging it, right? I'm speaking about the reality of things. And when I started to speak, I said, I understand the role of media in portraying the different stereotypes that we have in society, right? And not that I'm not acknowledging the fact that there are some people who actually are of the views, strong views, they believe in them. But what I'm trying to explain is that the media plays a huge role in portraying some stereotypes that we have in society right now. Hence, I even say, if we can go out right now, you will meet Congolese, you will meet Nigerians, you will meet different people from African continents, right? Or from African states, rather. But it's rare, or let me just outline that there's no one out there in hospitals who's going to, in hospitals or in restaurants, in businesses, in companies who say, I'm denying this service because it's from an African country and so forth, right? So the point or the perspective that I'm trying to outline is that South Africa is accepting, whether be it African continent or global north or wherever, to come in and work and form part of the people who are working towards increasing the economic growth of the state, I understand. So I'm not entirely not acknowledging the fact that there is issue of xenophobia, there is. I'm acknowledging that. However, what I'm trying to explain here is that some stereotypes that we have in society are not the reality that we face, right? Hence, I even said that let's go out there and be on the ground and see what's actually happening. Go in hospitals, go in all of these companies, different companies and businesses. If you go to even towns that are occupied by many of the global south people, right? That's the reality of our society right now. But also, I do acknowledge the fact that there is xenophobia. I do acknowledge that fact. But my main goal, or my main point here, is that we now try to rely most on stereotypes that has been produced by the media, but they're not the reality of our society, right? You can never deny the fact that South Africa is a very good nation. There's no one who's been taken back from airport because they're from Congolese. Absolutely not. When someone came here to work and ensure that they're working towards economic growth of the country, they're accepted entirely. Because like I said, the goal is to grow the economy. However, we cannot entirely rely on the stereotypes made by media, because media makes so many stereotypes that are not the reality of our society or the reality of our community. Hence, my main point is to say, we can't have this argument and rely our arguments on the basis of what the media portrays, because what the media portrays is not the reality of the society. Hence, I said, if you go out there in the South African society, we are a revolution. We are going to find people from China, containers from Pakistan, people from Congo, from Nigeria, because that's the reality of our society. We accept anyone and everyone who comes with the skill to empower our people and to ensure that the economy grows in our country. However, we don't shy away from the fact that there's xenophobia, but we can't rely or base our argument on what the media says there is, or what the stereotypes of the media says there is in our society.